Spirit of truth, thank you, thank you, thank you. We come here this morning to celebrate your presence in our lives. We come here this morning to celebrate the light and the love that we know is within us. We come here to celebrate a community, to know that the truth of love is moving forth into this world. No matter what the world around us is telling us, we know the truth in our heart. We come today to celebrate. We come today to lift that up within ourselves and in each other. We thank you for that. In the name and the nature and through the power of the Christ that indwells each person, we say amen. Yes, we do. We dwell at this very moment in the presence of the Lord. Because we know we are in the presence of God. And the presence of God is within us. And so if you've not already done so, I would invite you to sit comfortably, close your eyes, and allow yourself this time to commune with the power and the love and the presence of the divine that is within you and all around you. And as we step into that awareness, as we step into that conscious awareness of the presence and the power of the light and the love, of the peace and the strength that is God striving to come forth from within us, I invite you to open your heart. Turn your attention inward to your physical heart. Know that the power and the presence of God is there, like a hand wrapped around your physical heart, holding you, beating you, giving you animation to bring forth that light, that love, that peace that you are. And as we move forth into a time of quiet and silence and stillness, I invite you to repeat with me to yourself an affirmation to your heart, an affirmation with your heart that simply says, I am the peace of God expressing in this world. I am the peace of God expressing in this world. I am the peace of God. I am the peace of God. I am peace. I am peace. I am. I am. And as we begin to come back into this time and space, into this world, into this room, we bring with us the awareness that we are peace. That no matter what is happening in the world around us, no matter what challenges we're facing, we can always anchor back into the truth, into the presence, into the light, into the love that is God saying, I'm here, I'm with you, I'm in you. Just release, let go, and know I am. And with that open heart and that awareness and that compassion of light and peace coming forth, imagine with me that your heart is so wide open that peace begins to pour out of your heart like a waterfall off a mountain. It continues to pour out of your heart into this world. It continues to pour out of your heart into the floor around you. And know that the person next to you, to your right and your left, behind you, and in front of you. That same peace is pouring out onto the floor until the entire floor is sopping wet with just peace and love. And this peace grows so much that it pours out of the doors into the sanctuary of this room and into the streets of Broward County. For we know that peace begins here, begins with me, begins now, with my heart open and wide. And collectively, we can touch the hem of the infinite in ways that are beyond imagination. We allow God to be God right here, right now, in this place, in our hearts. The challenges melt away as I become aware of the truth that is in me, in you, and in us. And from this awareness of peace and this outpouring and flowing of peace, we surround each person this morning in our prayer box that have requested prayer. We surround Cass Collins and her challenges with health concerns. We see her surrounded in peace and love and health and vitality. And the same with anybody else that may be facing a health challenge, financial challenges, relationship challenges, work challenges. No matter what the challenges are in the world, the peace is within. And so we claim this together right here, right now, in the name and the nature and through the power of the Christ that indwells you and you and you and you and you and me. And we let it be. And so it is. Amen. And join me once again, focusing into your heart, focusing into your very being, into that peace. And affirm with me verbally the prayer that we've been taught by Jesus Christ. It simply says, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
And switch microphones. Sing with me. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. We let the joy, we let the joy wash over us. We let it be. We let the grace of God, we let the grace wash over us. We let it be. We let the love, everybody, we let the love wash over us. We let it be. One more time, let's shout this one from the mountaintops. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. One last time, we let it be. We let it be.
Thank you all for coming. Have a good day.
You better stay. I came for you.
All right. Woo! One thing's for sure, this ministry is blessed. Wow. I don't even know where to start after that. Whew. Good morning. How are we doing this morning? Well, good to be back with you all. It's been a while since I've been here, and it's really good to be back with you all. You know, a few weeks ago, maybe it was a couple of months ago, I was reading this story. The story about a pastor who'd been in a church for about 15 years. And every Sunday or every week he would prepare his message. Sunday he would deliver the message. The problem is his messages were dull. They were boring. They weren't enlightening or exhilarating for anybody. But the people would come every Sunday anyway. And every Sunday they would file out, they would shake his hand, they wouldn't say anything about his message, and they would leave. Until one Sunday, a woman coming through that receiving line said, "Pastor, thank you so much for your message. I got so much out of it." Wait, what? What's it that you got? Well, I learned so much about the peace of God, and I learned so much about the love of God. He said, "Well, what was it that you learned about the peace of God and the love of God?" She said, I learned about the peace of God from your message because it passed all understanding. And I learned about the love of God from your message because it endured forever. Well, hopefully that won't happen today. But we are going to be talking about peace. Something we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be touching on three things. We're going to be talking about peace that you are. The peace that you are. You see, we believe in unity in the second principle that you are made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore you have good. Every person in this world has good in them. Yes, hard to see in some people, but everybody is imbued with the spark of the divine. And as we attribute the idea that peace is the divine, then everybody has peace within them. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. The second thing we're going to talk about is the idea that we sabotage that peace. We do it to ourselves. We block that peace. So we're going to talk about that and how we do that. Third thing we're going to talk about are ways and tools that we have to be able to release, to be able to let go of those blocks, unblock, so once again we can know the power and the presence and the peace of God within us to be able to express it into the world. But before we get into all of that stuff, I would be remiss if I didn't say the following. I never mention anything political from the platform. But Tuesday is a very important day. And so I would encourage you strongly, if you have not already done so through absentee or early voting, to vote. This is an important election. With that off my chest, this political cycle that we've been in for seems like 300 years. It's a great launching post, or a great launching place for us to begin our talk today. You see, this idea of what is happening in this political cycle, I don't know about you, but I'm so looking forward to this thing being over. I'm not sure that it will be when it's done, but anyway, I'm so looking forward to it. You know, you can't go anywhere. You can't go to work. Everybody wants to talk about the election. You can't hang out with your friends for dinner. Everybody wants to talk about the election. You can't turn on the television. The commercials are bombarding you. You can't go online. You can't go to Facebook. It's just bombarding us. The negativity and the craziness is just coming at us. And I believe this is a macrocosm of what happens in our lives in a microcosm. Every day we're bombarded with negativity, with crazy stuff hitting us. And what happens is with this negativity, this craziness, especially these elections, a great example, it comes at us and it knocks us off center. It knocks us off center. It moves us away from remembering the truth of who we are, the truth of who we were created by, who we were created as. And as we forget that, we begin to get into a crazy mode. You see, we get distracted. We get distracted. We have been given this incredible gift as part of our creation. It's called the mind. And this mind is made for us to be able to navigate through the world and to bring the truth and the power and the love and the peace and the imagination, the creativity that is within us into the world. And the mind is here to help us to navigate that. The problem is, every time we get knocked off center, every time we forget that truth, we begin to identify with the mind. And it's been happening so long in our lives that we are now permanently identified with the mind. And as the mind begins to take control, or we give it control, it becomes a filter for us. It begins to block these negative experiences coming at us. And as these negative experiences or these negative energies coming at us, rather than allowing them to move through us so that they are no longer part of our experience, we begin to block them, and they don't have anywhere to go, so they stick with us. They stick with us, and what we do is we take them, we put them in this pretty little pouch, and we hang them on our side. So that's one thing coming. The next issue comes up, the mind is in control, it blocks, it thinks it's doing you a favor. So we take this pain, potential pain, and we wrap it up in a little pouch, and we I call these our pain pockets. And what these pain pockets are, as we develop them, are our buttons, and our buttons get pushed. So what we do is then we move into this situation where we don't like those buttons being pushed, so now we have to bring in the big C word, control. See, we have to develop and control the world around us so that those buttons don't get pushed, those pain pockets don't get touched. And here's the illusion that we hear so much about. This is the illusion. The illusion is this false sense of control so that we don't feel that pain. And what happens is we build this wall of pain pockets, and then we build this crust around those pain pockets until what we're doing essentially is pushing down the truth of who we are. It becomes hidden, and we don't even realize it anymore. And then when we do that, we begin to step into the big D word, which is desire. Desire is something we can see beyond the pain, beyond the crust of the control. And we begin to see, so we begin to desire it. The problem is reaching the desire is hard to do because we have to muddle through all of the pain, muddle through all of the things that we don't like to feel, all those ooey gooey things that no, we don't want to touch. We have to move through this false sense of control that we have developed so that we control the world around us so people like us. We control the world around us so that we can attract the right relationship into our lives. We control the world around us so we can attract the right job. But here's the thing. If we can somehow figure out a way to get rid of the crust of control, get rid of the pain, we can step forward and there's no longer any desire. Desire gives way to inspiration. You see, we are then, when all of that pain and all that crust has gone away, we are then stepped into the truth and we can make it realize that we're living in spirit. We are living inspired lives. There's no longer, what if over there? It is right here, right now. Look what is and what is coming from me and us into this world as peace and love. But we got to do the work first. We've got to step forward first. We need to redirect our attention and step back and say, we're not part of that mind. That's not who I am. I'm not that computer that has now been infected and has viruses. No wonder we're broken because we've identified ourselves with the power of the mind as opposed to stepping back and saying, no. You're just the tool that I've been giving. Thank you so much. So how do we do that? How do we redirect our attention from identifying with the mind, identifying with all of this insanity in the world, and pretending we have to put a thing out there or a control out there so that people don't know all of my icky stuff, all of the stuff that I don't want none of you to know what goes on inside of me, because I can tell you it ain't pretty. So I've got to control the world. So how do I get past that? How do I remove that control? How do we remove those pain pockets, as I call them, to be able to step forth into that? Well, I'm going to offer you 2 suggestions. And the first one is very much aligned with unity. They're both very much aligned with unity. But the first one is one of the basic principles, and that's prayer and meditation. Take time. The thing about prayer and meditation, it sounds wonderful, but it takes discipline. It takes discipline to be able to set aside time, allow those monkeys, those crazy mind things, those thoughts that are running around in our mind, to quiet them. But it takes practice. It takes to set aside 15 minutes a day, let's say, and just say, okay, I'm going to quiet those monkeys. You know, this is the brokenness of the mind, all of the viruses it's been giving is creating all these monkeys, all these short circuits. And so up there in the trees are all these crazy monkeys swinging away, hollering and swinging and having a good old time. But it's making us crazy because it's not the truth of who we are. So if we step into a time of solid prayer and meditation, setting aside some time to let those monkeys rest, give them jokers a break. They've been swinging around for 30, 40, in my case, over 50 years. Let them rest. They're tired. Give them a rest. So through prayer and meditation, we can begin to realize, and what happens is those monkeys rest, then the truth of who you are, the Christ within you, can begin to come up and go, ooh, look, it's quiet out here. And what I equate to, I don't know if you remember this arcade game. You know, this idea of the crust, the pain, the crust of the control. What we're doing is we're pushing down, we're beating down the Christ within us. And when I thought about this idea of this remembrance of this arcade game, Whack-A-Mole. Do you remember this game? It was a board about yay big, had 5 or 6 holes in it. And this little plastic mole or rodent would pop out, and you were given a mallet, maybe a rubber head or a styrofoam or whatever, and as those plastic things popped up, you begin to beat them down, and every time you hit a mole, you got points. This is the same thing. We're beating down the truth of who we are. We're beating it down because we've put the mallet in the hands of fear, regret, and control. So how do we take the mallet out of fear and regret and control? Well, I would also like to suggest that we don't need to just take it out of their hands. We need to throw the mallet away. There needs to be no weapon in preventing the Christ within you to come forth and shine bright in this world. But how do we do that? How do we throw the flippin' mallet away? Well, we just talked about one thing, prayer and meditation, right? But there's a second idea. This tool, it sounds so warm and fuzzy. It sounds wonderful. It sounds great. But in truth, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it's something called self-awareness. Self-awareness allows you to step back, come out of yourself, actually come into yourself, and step back and see that mind. See those crazy thoughts. See what happens, then you become not the mind, you become the observer of the mind. And when you become the observer of the mind, you begin to see the insanity of what's going on. And the more you step back and see that insanity happening, the more you can step back and say, good Lord, am I a mess? Wow. And let me tell you, in the last 50 years of my life, I have been a mess. I've got some good friends in here today that will tell you exactly what kind of mess I have been. But we allow that to move forward and move through us through self-awareness. But the self-awareness thing, see, this spiritual journey, the spiritual growth is not for the faint of heart. This is not easy stuff because we've got to reach down deep inside and look at those pain pockets. Say, oh God, I don't want to release it. But pop it. Find the courage deep within you. Pop that pain pocket. Feel it. As much as it hurts, feel it. Because when you feel it, it moves through you and it's no longer there. And when it's no longer there, you don't have to pretend and put this false image up for the world to think that you're something that you're not. And when you do that, what begins to happen is the Christ within you begins to rise. It begins to come forth into a power that is beyond anything you could possibly even fathom. And that that Christ rising gives way, if you will, to this idea of your consciousness expanding. And as that rises, as that grows, as that expands, then it begins to look up. It's coming out of that hole in that board. Now, I'm no longer in that hole. There ain't nobody got a weapon on me. I'm coming out of that hole. And it looks up into the trees and sees all these monkeys. It says, look at them nuts. You see that crazy one up there swinging around, hollering? But as we continue to grow, we begin to move further into what I call self-forgiveness. We're stepping back and we're looking at this mind and saying, look what it has created. But then you can begin to say, I forgive you. Mind, I forgive you. I've given you a job and a responsibility that was never meant for you to do. You are meant to be a tool to bring forth love and peace. But I have given you the responsibility of control of my life. That's not your job. I step back and I begin to forgive you. And what happens, we call this self-forgiveness. And as that self-forgiveness continues to grow and to grow and to grow, what happens, that self-forgiveness turns into self-compassion. And the more we do it, the more that consciousness expands, that self-compassion grows so big, it begins to spill out onto the world and to everybody around us. And so that forgiveness begins to move from self to the world. It grows and it grows and expands, and the compassion begins to reach out and touch the world around us. Everything that I've been reading lately, I said this to the board yesterday, everything I've been reading lately is pointing to the same thing. Michael Singer, who I was blessed to see about 3 weeks ago at the Unity Southeast region. Elizabeth Lesser, thank you, Marka, for turning me on to that one, and her idea of broken open. Or Brene Brown and her ideas of being authentic, truly the truth of who you are, being authentic. Henry Nouwen and his ideas of spiritual direction. Even Eric Butterworth. Even Paul in the New Testament says, work out your own salvation. That means take a deep dive into yourself and say, wow, I don't like this, but I'm going to muddle through it. We're clearing the subconscious to allow what Unity calls the superconscious, the God within you, to come forth into manifestation. But we can't do that with all the crap that we're holding, all those pain pockets. We got to pop them, but we got to find them, we got to see them, we got to search them out, we got to find the courage, we got to be the warrior within ourselves. All of these things are saying the same thing. They're all pointing to the same thing. Be authentic. Be the truth of who you are. You don't have to impress anybody. You don't have to impress anybody because the truth of who you are is love and peace and harmony. That will impress everybody. You don't have to pretend to be anything that you're not. But again, this is not easy. This is not for the faint of heart. There's some of you in here that have stepped through several issues in your life. Maybe they're addiction issues. Maybe they're situations with family that you just can't seem to get by, get through, get past. It's okay. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to experience it, albeit it don't feel good. I get it. And here's the paradox of all of this stuff. Here's the true paradox. The paradox is when we're in that control mode, when we have all that pain and we've surrounded ourselves with the crust of control so that everyone will like us or we can attract whatever we want to in our life, we begin to think and identify with mind, look at me, I'm all that. Look at me. I'm all that stuff. And the more that you begin to step into this process, prayer, meditation, self-awareness, self-forgiveness, self-compassion, you begin to say, oof, I really ain't all that. I really ain't all that. But here's the paradox of it. The more you do it, the consciousness expands, the truth begins to come forth, the Christ, the God within you begins to come forth, and you begin to say, I ain't all that, I'm all this. I am all the love and the peace and the harmony that is God coming forth into this world, and I can express it, and I don't have to fear what you say because the fear is not real. But it takes courage to dive deep and step into that exploration. And here's where true freedom comes. This is where it comes. You see, when we step into that awareness, when we begin to do the work, when we begin to self-explore, we begin to self-forgive, when we begin to move into self-compassion, and we allow that consciousness, that truth, that Christ arise, then we can step forward as Jesus says and says, I and the Father are one. Then we can step forward as Jesus says and says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That is who you are. The question is, are you willing to do the work to get there? There's a difference between giving the mind control and realizing the truth of who you are. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Chapter 3, verses 5 and 6 says the following. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Trust not on your little pea brain. This beautiful computer you've been given, don't trust it because you've given it control and it's now infected. Don't trust that. Step back, move into self-forgiveness, self-awareness, and trust the Christ within you. That's where your path will be made straight. And this is what I believe the writer of this Proverbs is stating. So with all of that said, I would like for you to put on your imagination cap with me. As we sang earlier, imagine. Imagine the power and the love and the peace that would be unleashed if only one person in this room took this seriously and really dove in, did the work, moved through the pain, and allow your truth to come out. Imagine the power and the love and the peace that would be unleashed into this world. Now, imagine this. Imagine two people in this room that have stepped into this and found the courage to dig deep, find all that icky gooky stuff, allowed it to pass through you, to step forth and realize the truth of who you are. Two people. And what begins to happen is the self-forgiveness, the self-compassion grows so big in both of them that the compassion begins to connect where two or three are gathered. And when this happens, when one begins to fall, there's so much forgiveness and compassion from the other one, they lift them up. And the same the other way. This is what Henry Nouwen calls spiritual community. He calls spiritual community as solitude greeting solitude. Solitude, he defines as what we just said. The person who has realized the truth of who they are, that has moved through the muck, moved through the craziness of life, and allowed the truth to come forth. The other one, solitude greeting solitude. Here is where we find spiritual community. Imagine two people. Now, imagine with me everybody in this room that has been able to, that can take the courage to step forth and dig deep and realize the craziness that we have been created, or we have allowed to be created. Unblock it. Feel the pain. Allow yourself to feel it, knowing there are other people you can turn to say, man, this really hurts. I need help. Hold my hand. And we have chaplains that can do that with you. Hold my hand because this hurts. But I guarantee you what happens when you move through that pain, as painful as it may be, what's on the other side is an amount of peace you will never, ever imagine in your life. It's too grand to even fathom. And this is where the Christ rises. This is where the peace is known. This is where the peace is expressed into this world. See, this is how we take the mallet out of the hand of fear and regret and control. We throw the mallet away. There's no more buttons. There's no more mallets. There's no more weapons. And that Christ can rise and move into an expression into this world that exudes peace beyond all understanding. Let's pray. Spirit of truth, thank you so much for this time. And my prayer at this moment is for myself and for each person in this room today to find the courage, to find the discipline for meditation, to quiet the monkeys, find the courage to step into doing the deep dive into self-awareness, the truth of who I am, and allow that presence of love that each of us are to come forth and express into the world, into Broward County, into the state of Florida, into the United States, and into this world. as we say and sing at the end of the service, let peace begin with me. And so we claim all this in the name and the nature and through the power of that Christ that's dwelling within each person. And so it is. Amen.